They left me alone in the most vulnerable moment of my life, lying in a hospital bed, unable to even lift my own hand, while I was fighting between life and death. No calls, no visits, no, "Are you okay?" Nothing. I became invisible to the very people I called family. But what they didn't know was this: silence creates something dangerous. And when I finally stood back on my feet, I didn't come back as the same girl they abandoned. I came back as the consequence of their choices. And the moment the cameras arrived, everything they built started to collapse. Bust in silhouette, name, and identity. My name is Emily Carter. I am 33 years old, originally from Brooklyn, New York, USA. People used to call me the quiet one in the family, the one who always forgives, always understands, always stays silent even when it hurts. But they confused my silence with weakness. That was their biggest mistake. Broken Heart Part 1, the hospital silence that changed everything. It all started on a freezing winter night in New York. I still remember the sound of the ambulance siren cutting through the storm. My body felt like it was breaking apart from the inside. I had collapsed outside my apartment after weeks of exhaustion, stress, and untreated illness. I didn't even realize how bad it had become until I woke up in a hospital room with machines beeping beside me. The doctor said the words I will never forget. "You were brought in just in time. Another hour and it could have been irreversible." I didn't cry, I just stared at the ceiling. Because in that moment, I wasn't thinking about death. I was thinking about my family. I called them the same night. My mother answered briefly. "Mom, I'm in the hospital." There was a pause. Then she said something I didn't expect. "We're busy right now, we'll come later." And the line went dead. Later never came. Days passed. I lay in that hospital bed alone, watching strangers check my vitals, change my IV, and ask me if I had anyone coming. No one came. Not my parents, not my brother, not even my closest relatives who used to eat at my table during holidays. I kept convincing myself. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they don't know how serious it is. Maybe tomorrow they will come. But tomorrow turned into a week. Then 2 weeks. Still nothing. One nurse finally said something softly while adjusting my blanket. "You seem like you're waiting for someone who isn't coming." I smiled, but my eyes didn't. Because deep down, I already knew. Derelict the life I had before the hospital. Before all this, I wasn't helpless. I worked as a junior project coordinator in a media company in Manhattan. Nothing glamorous, but I was proud of it. I supported myself, paid my rent, and still sent money home whenever my family asked. And they asked a lot. My father always had business problems. My brother always needed help to get started. My mother always had emergencies. And I always gave. Even when I had nothing left. Even when I was drowning myself. I thought that's what love meant. Giving until it hurts. But I learned something in that hospital bed. Love without respect is just exploitation. Chart decreasing the breaking point. On the 10th day, I finally asked the nurse for my phone. It had been left in my bag when I was admitted. I unlocked it slowly. Dozens of messages from work, a few from friends. But nothing from my family. Nothing asking if I was alive. My hands shook as I opened social media. And there it was. A post from my brother. A picture of him at a restaurant. Caption: "Good family dinner tonight, read blessed." My parents were sitting right there in the photo. Smiling. Laughing. Toasting glasses. While I was lying in a hospital bed alone. I remember staring at that image for a long time. Something inside me didn't just break. It went silent. That was the moment I stopped crying. Because pain had reached its limit. And something colder took its place. The decision that was born in silence. On the 14th day, I was discharged. No one came to pick me up. I took a taxi alone back to my apartment. When I opened the door, everything felt unchanged, but I was not the same person who left. That night, I sat on the floor and made a decision. Not revenge and anger. Not revenge and emotion. But something worse. Calculated truth. Because I finally understood something very clearly. People only value what they can see. And they only care when the world is watching. So I decided the world would watch. Movie camera, the return they didn't expect. 3 months passed. I rebuilt myself quietly. No contact, no arguments, no emotional messages. I disappeared from their lives the same way they disappeared from mine. But behind the scenes, I started documenting everything. Medical reports, messages, financial support records, screenshots, social media posts. Every piece of truth they thought was forgotten, I collected. And then I contacted a journalist. A small, independent documentary team in New York who focused on real family abandonment cases. When I told them my story, they didn't interrupt. They just said one thing. If even half of this is true, we will help you tell it. I replied. It's all true, I just have proof. High voltage, the twist begins. The documentary was scheduled quietly. No one in my family knew. Until the day of filming arrived. And I did something simple. I sent one message to my mother. I'm doing a small interview about recovery stories. You might see it online. No explanation, no emotion. Just that. Her reply came instantly. Be careful what you say. That was it. Not are you okay? Not what happened to you. Just fear. Because deep down, she already understood what was coming. Clapperboard the day the cameras arrived. The filming began in my apartment. The crew asked me questions. I answered calmly. About the hospital, about being alone, about the silence. Then the interviewer asked, Did your family know you were alone? I paused and said, Yes, and they chose not to come. At that exact moment, we heard knocking on the door. Hard, repeated, panicked. I already knew who it was before opening it. My mother. My father. My brother. And for the first time in months, they were all standing together at my door. But this time, they were not alone. Behind them, I saw something they didn't expect. Another camera crew. Because someone had tipped them off. The real world was now watching. And the story was no longer mine alone. Fire end of part 1, cliffhanger. My mother looked at me with shock. My father tried to speak. My brother stepped forward. But I raised my hand. Not to stop them, but to signal the crew. The cameras were rolling. And I said only one sentence. You came, but not when I needed you. Silence fell. And in that silence, everything they built began to crack. The moment I said, You came, but not when I needed you, the air in the room changed completely. My mother's face turned pale. My father looked around, realizing the cameras were not just for a small interview. This was being recorded, documented, and already unfolding in real time. My brother, who always acted confident, suddenly avoided eye contact. Behind them, the documentary crew stayed silent, professional, watching, waiting. And I didn't move. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one trying to fix the silence. Face without mouth, the confrontation begins. My father finally spoke, forcing a nervous laugh. Emily, this is not the place for drama. Let's talk inside. I almost smiled. Drama. That was his word for everything uncomfortable. I looked at him calmly. Inside, like how you didn't come inside the hospital for 14 days. Silence hit again. My mother stepped forward quickly, her voice shaking. We didn't know it was that serious. You didn't tell us everything. I interrupted her immediately. I told you I was in the hospital. I told you I needed you. She froze. Because she remembered. File folder, the proof they forgot I had. I turned slightly toward the camera crew and nodded. One of them stepped forward, holding a folder and a tablet. I think now is the right time, I said quietly. The interviewer asked softly, time for what? For the truth, I replied. The footage began. Medical reports, admission records, call logs, messages I sent from my hospital bed. And then, the most painful part, the screenshots of their replies. Or lack of replies. My brother shifted uncomfortably. My father's jaw tightened. My mother looked like she wanted to speak, but no words came out. Because everything was real. Everything was documented. And everything was now visible. Broken heart, the memory they tried to rewrite. My mother finally broke. We were stressed, we had problems too, you think we didn't care. Her voice cracked at the end. But I didn't react emotionally. Because I had already cried for years. I looked at her and said calmly, I wasn't asking for perfection, I was asking for presence. That sentence hit harder than any shouting ever could. My brother suddenly stepped forward. You always act like the victim. We didn't abandon you. I turned to him slowly. Then asked one question. What do you call leaving someone alone in a hospital bed for 2 weeks? He didn't answer. Because there was no answer that sounded good. Movie camera, when the world starts watching. What they didn't know was that the documentary team had already started streaming selected parts of the interview process to a private platform for review. And clips were already being shared. Quietly, then rapidly. Within hours, snippets began circulating online. Family leaves daughter alone in hospital. Recovery story turns into betrayal exposure. Woman documents abandonment with proof. The internet did what it always does. It listened. And it reacted. Chart decreasing the collapse of their image. By the next day, everything changed. My father's business partners started calling. My brother's workplace asked questions. My mother's social circle went silent. Because appearances can survive many things. But not documented truth. And especially not public truth. That evening, my brother called me privately. For the first time. His voice was different. Lower. Careful. Emily, can we fix this offline? I paused before answering. Then said, this stopped being private the moment I was left alone. And I ended the call. The final confrontation. 2 days later, they came again. No cameras this time. Just them. Standing outside my apartment like strangers, trying to remember how we used to be family. My mother was crying. My father looked tired. My brother avoided my eyes completely. My mother said softly, we made mistakes, but we are still your family. I looked at them for a long time. Then replied, family is not a title, it's a responsibility. Silence. Then I continued. You don't lose family when you argue. You lose family when you disappear during their worst moment. No one spoke. Because nothing needed to be added. Balance the choice I made. They expected forgiveness. They expected emotion. They expected the old version of me. But I wasn't that person anymore. I stepped back slightly and said, I'm not here to destroy you. They looked relieved for a second. Then I finished the sentence. I'm here to make sure the truth doesn't disappear again. And I closed the door. Not with anger, but with finality. New moon after everything. The documentary, released weeks later. It wasn't dramatic. It was just real. No exaggeration. No manipulation. Just truth. And it spread far beyond what anyone expected. People didn't just watch it. They talked about it. Because everyone recognized something in it. Being ignored when you needed someone the most. Fire final ending. I didn't get revenge through destruction. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I simply let the truth exist where it couldn't be ignored anymore. And sometimes, that is the most powerful ending there is. Because in the end, they didn't lose me in anger. They lost me in silence. And silence doesn't come back. If you want, I can also. Or